Four people who were charged with criminal damage of a statue in Bristol of slave trader Edward Colston during the height of the global anti-racism protests in 2020 have been cleared of all charges by majority jury decision. Now, is it just me, or does it look like there were far more than four people involved in that? Anyway, the four people charged have been cleared, which seemingly, depending on your viewpoint, is either a great victory in the fight against racism, or a licence for Marxists driven by spite, envy and class warfare to destroy public property and further their dangerous political ideology. So who was Edward Colston? Born nearly 400 years ago, he was a profiteer of slave trading. Pause to read this. Shocking, right? It's fair to say Colston really liked slavery, and he amassed huge amounts of wealth facilitating it. Wealth which he then gave very large proportions away to charity. Such was the way he was eulogised for his charitable donations afterwards. Various Colston societies sprang up to remember him by. Things started to be named after him. Schools, streets, church services, hills, even pubs in Bristol and the concert hall are named after Edward Colston. And then in 1895, this bronze statue was sculpted and found its way to Bristol city centre. It's Bristol City Council property. Society has moved on though. Slavery is now generally thought of as a bad thing that shouldn't be aggrandised. And as a result, there have been a growing number of protests and petitions, especially over the last decade, to start renaming some of these things and maybe have the statue moved to a museum. But mostly, these things were ignored. The council agreed something needed to be done to better reflect Bristol's past. They just couldn't agree on what. Then in 2017, the concert hall announced it was thinking about changing its name, which sort of set off a domino effect, and other places began thinking about it too. Progress was being made, just not on the council. The statue remained. There were talks on adding a second plaque to it in early 2018 that read something like this. But then any slow progress which was being made all stalled because of the sort of political nonsense which has dogged this country's councils for decades. There was also talk in 2018 of renovating an old shed on the dockyard and using that as a museum. But instead, the council decided to sell the building to pizza restaurant developers, wasting £1.4 million of taxpayer money in the process. It was only after all this, and during the height of global anti-racism protests in the wake of George Floyd's murder, that the statue was toppled. So is this a great victory in the fight against racism, or licence for angry mobs to destroy public property in the future? Well, neither, if you ask me. It's just another example of political incompetence and capitalism blocking societal progress.